Good morning. We are the stewardship team, or at least those who could be here today. We have thought and talked endlessly about what we can say or do to encourage us all to live and love more generously, which is one of our spiritual goals. Perhaps it'll strengthen our connection to hear about a few who have gone before. The spirits and contributions of many who have worked and worshiped and played here before us are still in this place. Let us tell you about a few.
This is Claire Gallant. She and her husband Ed were pillars of USNH and are now both gone. They gave us money and sweat and thought that built and upheld this place. Claire was a mainstay of RE here for decades. In his 80s, Ed played chess with the youth of Waverly.
This is Jim Barron. Jim was a World War II vet, a motorcycle lover, a carpenter, and a sweet spirit. He wasn't with us terribly long, and he wasn't a visible leader, but he was a presence in many ways, a foot soldier, if you will. He designed and built this pulpit that you see every Sunday.
And this is John Pollock. We lost him just last year. John marched to Montgomery, Alabama with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today is the 58th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. John gave us endless music, money, and time for decades. He played cello and sang, appeared in our plays, led the LRY, now YRUU, and later was active almost every week in our partnership with Waverly Youth.
These and thousands of others, some gone and some still with us, built and sustained this place for us. This is you and me. And all of us and our children, whether you came 10 years ago or last week. We must give the money and do the work. We are not called not only to remember those before us, we are called to be them. It is up to us, to you, to carry on the work and programs for ourselves and those who come after. Please make your generous pledge soon, and in no case later than the close of the program, the stewardship campaign on April 2nd. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you, old friends and new, those who joined us in person and by Zoom. Whoever you are, whoever you love, you are welcome here. I am Lisa Anderson, and serving as your worship associate, my pronouns are she and her. For those of you who have chosen us for the first time, or for the first time in a long time, we are especially glad that you have chosen us. We are a people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. And it's my personal privilege today to welcome our own Jamie Ross, our congregational administrator, to our pulpit. Many of you may not know that Jamie is an ordained minister. She's an interfaith minister and spiritual director with a focus on ceremonial and ritual practice, as well as meditation. Today, Jamie will be sharing her loving kindness meditation practice with us, and I'm sure I speak for many of you when I say that she is a gift to this community. Now for a few announcements, and these are all events happening today, directly after the service. There's a listening session about our transitional minister search in the chapel from noon to 1:15, directly after the service. Bobby Pace is leading it and has room for just about 9 or 10 more people. Please go up to the chapel a few minutes early if you'd like to be included and have not already signed up online. Becky Reeve and Sue Trotter-Smith will be signing up people in the social hall for additional sessions. There are going to be additional sections in the next 10 days, so please look out for them. Now, we're going to be celebrating the USNH Good Trouble status and supporting abortion access in Wisconsin. And you can join the party Sunday, again today, in the social hall to celebrate our Good Trouble status. We are one of only 24 congregations, one of 24 to have achieved Good Trouble status for our work in the 2022 election cycle. And the team also asks for your support in supporting women's access to abortion in Wisconsin. They're writing postcards to BIPOC voters to encourage their participation in what is a critical Supreme Court election. For more information and to pick up postcard packets, they're going to be available after the service at the Good Trouble table. And now, if you're visiting us for the first time, or perhaps just new enough to USNH that you have questions about Unitarian Universalism and our congregation, we encourage you to grab a cup of coffee, tea, cake, and join us this coming, again today, in room 209, which is upstairs on the left, at our monthly visitors chat right after the service. And this is sponsored by our Connections team. And then finally, we're having a really important auction, and you can learn more about it. It's called Auction 23, Bid Boldly. That meeting is going to take place at noon in room 207. Yeah, 209, 207, okay. Find out how you can be a part of this awesome event. There's plenty to be done before June 2nd. Let me add that this is a very important fundraising effort, so please come to this meeting if you're able, and certainly mark that date on your calendar. Now, I invite you to put your devices into worship mode and settle into worship.
Good morning. Our call to worship this morning is by Hackton Cotter. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this place, may we find comfort and courage. Here, may our sight become vision to see the unseen, to glimpse the good yet to be. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. In this spirit, we light our chalice.
My name's Sharon McBlain. I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do, and join me in singing hymn number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place.
So we're changing things up a bit, and I'm going to do the children's message. Little different. So let me start with a bit of context before I read the poem by Naomi Nye, Gate A4. In her groundbreaking book, I Never Thought of It That Way, the progressive-leaning journalist Monica Guzman, who's also the loving daughter of Mexican immigrants who voted twice for Trump, she writes about the siloing of America. She observes that Americans, more than ever in our history, and she has the stats to back this up, are living and spending time almost exclusively with people that sound and act like them, and thereby fueling and amplifying their own rage and creating huge distances from one another. Ms. Guzman searches for a way for us to have fearless, courageous conversations with people with whom we have wildly different opinions about everything: politics, religion, sexuality, you know what I'm talking about. All of us are doing this siloing, she argues. I agree, and I know that I am. So I have found one of the most diverse places in the US are our airports. People gather there from every part of our country and the world, and we sit together in terminals and airports for hours. For me, airports and flying is one of my opportunities to break out of my silo and to practice loving kindness, which is a topic of today's service. And what is particularly liberating and precious about these conversations and connections for me is that they're anonymous. Now, many of you know that I've been crisscrossing across this country from coast to coast more times in the last 5 years than I'd like to admit to myself. Admit to that self who's worried sick about environmental sustainability and carbon imprints. Each trip requires 4 days of travel, multiple connections, and land travel by buses, cars, or trains. I'm going to a pretty rural place. Last month, I chatted with a 50-something tattooed woman from Indiana, and she was on her first plane trip. She was moving an elderly friend whom she called family across the country. She shared with me that she was totally unaware of the TSA requirements following 9/11, and therefore had to throw away a good amount of her food. She was amused, but good-humored about this inconvenience. And we had a really meaningful conversation about the choices people make at end of life. During the same trip, I talked with a woman for almost 2 years in a small rural airport that hosts 1 flight a day. I learned about her remarkable but exhausting work as a school counselor in a conservative part of Washington state. She drives 200 miles a day from her remote farm to distant schools. She has 4 apps on her phone so she can monitor the weather. I can't even use one. And then there was this young man on one of my connections. I think he was a QAnon adherent, and he was sitting next to me. I was startled by his ideas and remained mainly silent, just listening for most of the conversation, but examined with interest the photos of his lovely family, his 2 teenage boys in baseball uniforms, and I tried to remain curious and open. It was really hard. Clearly, travel is a chance to practice our covenant also. That part which asks us to listen deeply and honor others with our full attention, seeking to understand one another and assume good intentions. So, nice poem. I think it's an invitation to engage in loving kindness in action. And it is the practice of listening, being curious, and sitting with non-judgment. She writes, wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal after learning my flight had been delayed for 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumbled to the floor wailing, "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late, and this is what she did." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly in Farsi. The minute she heard any word she knew, how poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for a major medical treatment the next day. I said, "No, we're fine. We're fine. You'll get there. Who's picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son. I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mom till we got on the plane and ride next to her for the fun of it. And then we talked to her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out over the course they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, I'm going to call some of my Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her. This took 2 hours. I love it. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering my questions. She pulled out a sack of homemade mamul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbling balls stuffed with dates and nuts from her bag, and she was offering them to all the women in the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from the huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were just covered with powdered sugar. And I noticed my new best friend. By now we were holding hands. And she had a potted plant poking out of her bag. Some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around the gate of late and weary ones, and I thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about another person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all these other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost.
Let's bring the children up to their classes now with words that are in your order of service. All children come with me. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down, down to the earth. Our roots go down.
Oh, that was so beautiful. I have some sad news to share from our member, Bernice Hall, about the death of her husband, Gordon. She writes that in the short time that Gordon got to be part of our congregation, he felt a strong connection to us. She continues, as a World War II vet, Gordon was a radio communication technician, and he always enjoyed fixing things, tinkering with things about the house, and he also loved the outdoors and gardening. He was completely devoted to his family and was a wonderful uncle, grandfather, father, and husband. His quick wit, laugh, and loving nature will be missed by everyone who is so fortunate to meet such a loving and caring person. We know that sorrow and joy abound in our community and in our greater world. Let us hold Bernie, their entire family, and friends in our hearts, and also remember all those who are grieving and suffering. And let us also give ourselves into the love and joy that will never cease to find us, even in the darkest times of our life.
This morning, I would like to engage you in a guided meditation, and I will give you instructions to help lead you through it. In the practice of metta meditation, one recites specific words and phrases evoking a boundless, warm-hearted feeling. We begin with ourself and gradually extend the wish for well-being and happiness to all beings. It may appear on the surface to be simple, but the practice is meant to be transformative in that it produces a positive energy that radiates out into the world. Let us begin. I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable in doing so, or have a relaxed gaze. Sit in a comfortable and relaxed manner. Take 2 or 3 deep breaths with slow, long, and complete exhalations, and let go of any concerns and any preoccupations, and for a few minutes, feel or imagine the breath moving through the center of your chest in the area of your heart. Metta is first practiced towards oneself. since we often have difficulty loving others without first loving ourselves. So sitting quietly, mentally repeating slowly and steadily the following phrases. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. While you say these phrases, allow yourself to sink into the intentions they express. Loving kindness meditation consists primarily of connecting to the intention of wishing ourselves and others happiness. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. As an aid to the meditation, you might hold an image of yourself in your mind's eye. This helps to reinforce the intentions expressed in the phrases. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful and at ease. Next, bring to mind a friend or someone in your life who has deeply cared for you. Hold their image in your mind and then slowly repeat the phrases of loving kindness towards them. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. As you continue the meditation, you can bring to mind other friends, neighbors, acquaintances, strangers, animals, and finally, people with whom you have difficulty. You can either use the same phrases, repeating them again and again, or make up phrases that better represent the loving kindness you feel towards these beings. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. As you say these phrases, again, sink into their intention or heartfelt meaning. And if any feelings of loving kindness arise, connect the feelings with the phrases so that the feelings may become stronger as you repeat the words. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. We will now take a moment of silence for you to continue your meditation.
And now the offering. There are just so many ways to support this beloved community. I want to give a shout out to our extraordinary stewardship committee. Special thanks to all of you for that moving testimony. You know, this really is our opportunity to shape the future we want to see at USNH, and we are at a precipice. But we together will determine the kind of minister and the kind of ministry we want, and our contributions will shape that. And the offering today, that's just another way to support our ministries. So please, give as generously as you are able. There are plates at the back of the sanctuary, and you can always contribute online or by mail. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Good morning. My name is Jamie Ross. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Most of you know me as your congregational administrator. What you may not know is that I am a 4 times ordained interfaith minister, spiritual director, celebrant, cleric, and monk. I spent a lot of time in meditation and contemplation. My mother said that I declared that I wanted to be a minister when I was about 7 years old. It took a while to get there, and there were a lot of twists and turns along the way. My spiritual journey intensified in my 20s, exploring and experimenting with many different spiritual practices, looking for the answers to the unanswerable questions. It wasn't until 2005, after a 27-year career in hospital administration, that I began my rigorous training and entered seminary. When I finally told my mother that I was going into seminary, her reply was, "Good. What took you so long?" She believed that I was born to do this work. Sharon Salzberg, in her book, Loving Kindness, The Revolutionary Art of Happiness, writes about the experience of a friend of hers who traveled to Sikkim in northeast India, hoping to see His Holiness, a great Tibetan Lama. The trip was quite arduous, necessitating his having to cross great mountainous terrain and river passes. But to his great delight, he was granted an audience with His Holiness. He was amazed to find someone of his status, a spiritual leader who is known the world over, would treat him as though his visit was the most important visit of his life. This treatment did not manifest in any grandiose gesture or ceremony, but in the complete way that her friend was given His Holiness's attention and presence, which offered him the experience of being completely loved. The act of being truly present to another person is an act of love. In this kind of genuine presence, we are able to awaken to who we really are, our true nature. We recognize ourselves and all that is possible for us when we look into the mirror of the person to whom we give our full attention. Sharon Salzberg goes on to say, great fullness of being, which we experience as happiness, can also be described as love. To be undivided and unfragmented, to be completely present is to love. To pay attention is to love. The Buddhist practice of meditation known as metta, which you had a brief introduction to, is love without attachment. It is generally felt that those close to one who practices metta will feel more comfortable and happier also. Radiating metta is thought to contribute to a world of love, peace, and happiness. One must start this practice with loving kindness to oneself. For many, this is the ultimate challenge. I would like to share a beautiful poem called The Bud by Galway Kinnell, which I believe exemplifies this principle. The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower, for everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on the brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch. It is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. The spirit of metta is unconditional. It flows freely and unobstructed. It is free of expectation. We may feel disappointed by the actions of a friend or that of a partner or a loved one, but that does not stop us from being a friend or of loving them. As well, we may often feel disappointed in ourselves, feeling that on occasion we may have fallen short of the mark. But again, that should not stop us from loving ourselves. Perhaps we should look upon ourselves and our loved ones during these occasions with a bit more compassion. It is very often our fear of pain, of being hurt by our disappointments, that close us down. If this fear closes us down to our inner feelings, we become more dependent on external forces to give us a sense of who we are. In the practice of metta, we surmount this fear and anxiety by replacing it with love. It is believed by Buddhist monks who practice this meditation that a mind which is saturated by loving kindness cannot be overcome with fear. Even if it should arise, it will not overpower such a mind. Heart and mind may be joined, and we are open to understanding of who we are and how to care for ourselves and others. In this way, we can connect and embrace all parts of ourselves in the true nature of loving. Our loving will be our strength and a source of healing for ourselves and the world. How do we connect with one another in a meaningful way? Consider the opportunities we have here, such as the Buddy Program and RE, as I give examples of loving kindness from my early beginnings. In addition to receiving unconditional love from my family, a kind elderly woman by the name of Mrs. Slayton ran the after-school program. The way that she treated me and the other children in her care felt like she was our grandmother. I owe her a debt of gratitude in the lessons she taught me in her gentleness that did not at the time appear to be lessons. Daily, she greeted us with her big smile, hugs, and a container of milk with cookies. She showed that she was delighted to see us. She made us feel very special. I wanted to make a present for my mother for Mother's Day, and I asked Mrs. Slayton for her assistance. She asked me what I thought I wanted to give her, and she made some suggestions, something that I could make with my own 7-year-old hands. One of her suggestions was that I make an apron. I thought that was a wonderful idea, but it also seemed like a daunting task. The next day, Mrs. Slayton brought in a variety of materials for me to pick from, which included a black and white checkered pattern material, as well as some lace for a border, a pair of scissors, needles, pins, and thread. She also taught me the use of a thimble. She so patiently showed me how to cut the pattern, even including a pocket, how to attach the waistband with the use of pleats, and for the finish, lace on the bottom as trim after making the hem. It took 2 weeks to complete, and it was such a major accomplishment in my little life at that time. She brought in a box complete with wrappings and a bow. She taught me the significance of presentation and showed me how to wrap the box with paper, folding the corners on the side and securing it with Scotch tape. By the time I had finished, I not only had the most beautiful present to give my mother that I had made myself, with a lot of help, of course, but I also learned that it was possible to accomplish what I believed to be impossible and a daunting task. She started my interest in sewing, which has been a lifelong pleasure, and cultivated my appreciation for aesthetics as well. She gave me so much encouragement, nurturing, loving attention, and confidence during a period of time in my life when I needed it most. As a child, I had many nervous tics and felt shy and withdrawn as other children would make fun of me. During the making of the apron and the concentration necessary to learn how to stitch and accomplish this task, it allowed me to relax like meditation. From that time, it opened me to the desire for creativity, and whenever I begin a creative task, I immediately go into a state of meditation that connects me with spirit. Her acts of kindness and grace had a lasting impact on my life. My parents, in their very different styles, were beacons of light. Mom, a working mother, always found time to do charitable work. My mom had the reputation of exemplifying the words to the song by Gordon Lightfoot, Susan's Floor. Like crippled ships that made it through the storm and finally reached the quiet shores, the homeless found a home on Susan's floor. Mom had an open door policy. There were always people, for some reason or another, who found refuge for periods of time in our home. Mom was the one who always had the neighborhood kids over for lunch, dinner, and sleepovers. She would take us all to the park and saw to it that we each had our lunch bags of cucumber and cream cheese sandwiches cut in half diagonally, a can of juice, an apple, and cookies. She was the one a friend or neighbor could count on for minding a child, caring for their pets while they were away, and watering their plants. She encouraged us to tend to the creatures in the park, feeding the squirrels and birds, to be aware of their nesting, and most importantly, not to disturb or distress them. She nurtured our appreciation for nature in all its splendor, and that we recognize our place as a part of a greater whole and the connectedness of all things, all people, and all creatures of the earth. Everybody loved my father. You couldn't help but love him, and he truly loved everybody. Try to picture a combination of William Shatner and Peter Falk as Columbo, and you would pretty much have it. He was a bit of a caricature. His charm, charisma, and humor were infectious. He had a laugh that would make anyone laugh. He was an attorney in private practice of law in partnership with my mom. They did a lot of pro bono work, particularly for immigration. As a child, I had the privilege of a multicolored, multicultural, multi-religious palette of people I would come to know as family and friends, and had a wealth of experiences. Nights and weekends were often spent in the homes of clients. One was a Chinese family my parents assisted in their settlement here in this country from China and helped them to establish their business. From the lap of Mrs. Han, I learned how to use chopsticks before I even learned to use a fork. She was mindful of the fact that I was left-handed, and though she was not, she taught me with my left hand by putting her hands around mine and feeding me with the sticks. Another client family immigrated from Italy and established an Italian bakery. Their family would make us the most beautiful birthday cakes that looked like wedding cakes, and often sent over fresh baked rolls for Sunday morning breakfast. My parents always helped people, regardless of their ability to pay. They befriended them and made them feel special. There are so many stories and so many examples, but what was most telling is that at my father's funeral, there were people lining the streets outside to pay their respects because there was not enough room in the funeral parlor. There were so many who loved him and felt his loss as family. Being loving and kind was not something they did. It was who they were. They were beacons who held the light very high. They instilled this light into their children and with all they touched by example. My parents were of the belief that we are our brother's keepers, that we cannot be unaffected by our actions towards others, that it is our duty and responsibility to care for and tend to others in need, to be custodians of the planet, to care for and nurture all creatures of the earth. It is impossible on this tiny blue marble of a planet to live a life of isolation and be unaffected, whether it be the destruction or elimination of a species such as the polar bear by our ecological neglect and global warming, or the annihilation of a peoples by war. We cannot turn our backs by thinking it's too far away or too large, or that we are too small to do anything personally that matters. There is a poem by the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu in the 6th century BCE. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Our very first step is to awaken our consciousness to our part of this grand design, to know that if we act locally, it has effects globally. It can start with something as simple as an internal smile. After a time, that smile will surface and will move outwards by affecting the muscles in your face. And as the smile bursts forth with all of its power, force, and might, shining its light from your inner core being, it will act as a contagion, spreading its joy to all you meet, and those affected will spread their light. If we each take responsibility of holding our own light high, that gift of spirit within us, we can change the world. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
Please turn to page 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness, in your teal songbook. Bill will play this through for us once before we stand to sing, and then we will sing it through once with I, second time with you, and the third time with we.
So now, please join me in the words we use to extinguish the chalice, which you'll find in the order of service or in the chat on the live stream. Let us say together, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Letting people know you love them is a kind and loving act. Few people tire of being told that they are loved, and saying I love you can make a world of difference in someone's life. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful and at ease. And may you be a blessing to this broken and beautiful world.